Test, 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 testing, test, test. Morning, folks. Y'all doing okay? Let's see. So I'll hand back your quizzes today. We have to do evals today too, and then also we'll try to do another quiz next week. What's today? Thursday? Oh, we have a test next week. Yeah, let's just do a test. We could do it Tuesday. All right, we'll get another quiz. And right now we're at 5 quizzes, and I'm going to try to get 2 more quizzes because because we only take the top 4. It's good for y'all to get a lot of quizzes, but let's see. We'll see. I'll send y'all an email today or tomorrow. If it's possible, we might have a quiz on Tuesday. I said it's good for y'all to have more quizzes, so don't feel like we're trying to just cram them in. I don't care, right? I mean, I'm done. I've got all the grades I need for your grades, but it's good for y'all. I mean, I do care, but it's good for y'all to get more quizzes so that you can drop your lowest quizzes. You understand my motivation here? And also, it gets you to read the chapters. It's good practice for the test and all that jazz. I have a couple of tuning forks here. These are different frequencies. I'm going to pass them around. This is, it's A, I guess that's the A note. It's 426 hertz, yes. Yeah, that's in hertz. And so, and then this other one is 288 hertz. So which one is the high-pitched one? The 426 or the 288? Right, this is the high pitch. So I'm going to pass these around and you can sort of bang them. Don't bang them on your desk, please. Just use the little rubber mallet. So that's the 288, and then that's the 426. If you hold them up to your ear, you can hear the beats. Remember we talked about the beats. We're not covering that, but you can hear the wah, wah, wah. I just think that's kind of cool. All right, so you can pass those around if you like. Play with them. I decided that in the next chapter that we'll do, and that'll be our last chapter for the class, is going to be not the electricity and magnetism chapter. It's kind of long and complicated, and I just don't like it that much. Not chapter 5, but instead we'll do chapter 6, which is, I think that's all we're going to have time for. Yeah. I'm sorry, what? The chapter review. That's to do the last day of class. I'll be putting you'll submit it electronically. So I'll put it on Moodle right now. Is anybody ready to turn in it right now? No. No, I mean y'all are good students. You're not that good, right? Yeah. So I'll get it posted so that y'all can upload it when you're ready. And I've only had 2 people tell me that they want to do presentations. So if y'all want to do that, please let me know. So I need to be able to schedule it. Listen, guys, the project, it's a big deal, right? It's worth what, 150, 200 points? 150, I think. Hey, Valerie. Yeah, it's a big deal, but it's also something that you should be able to meet the expectations of it fairly readily. 1,000 words isn't that much, honestly. It's 3 to 4 pages, double spaced. And then a 5-minute presentation, that's not that much either, 5 to 7 minutes. So just pick a chapter that you've liked, maybe, or you can even do one that we haven't covered. Like we haven't covered electric potential and cell. We won't cover nuclear radiation either. I think there's one other. Hey guys. All right, and I don't think we'll cover. Is that all? I'm losing it here. Casey. Wait, hold on just a second. Hey guys. Guys. I'm trying to talk here. All right, Casey, go ahead. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, you could do something. You can go with it in a direction that you wish to do. Right? Now, for a lot of you, they'll have health applications, and the book outlines some of those because most of you are in allied health fields. But if you want to talk about whales, that's fine too. Whales are cool. Okay, I'm okay with you reusing that or portion or some portion of that. But it needs to review the chapter as well. Summarize the chapter. Okay, that should be a good opportunity for you if you've done poorly on a test to pull up that test grade, okay? Because it's a lot of points. It should help you I mean it to boost your average, your overall average. All right, let's see. We left off with, oh yeah, we did the frequencies. Remember the inaudible to the audible spectrum for human beings is roughly 20 hertz. But I think we determined that practically nobody, I think maybe Kayla was the only one that could hear, you could hear what, 30 hertz or whatever? You can't really hear it is the thing, you just sort of sense its presence. Like something changed in the room, you can feel. But I can't detect it at all. And then we went up to 20,000 hertz. I think I played like an 18,000 hertz sound, and most of you could not hear that. Uh, so we have this range of frequencies that human beings can hear. Let's see, we also left off with this whole idea of a complex wave consists of multiple frequencies. And actually, you don't need to write this down, but I read this article this weekend. It was in like Physics Today or something, and they were talking about how we analyze musical instruments and how we humans, some humans more so than others, are able to hear a musical sound and say, "Gosh, that's a really great sound." But it's very complex because you hear these very complex waves, these sound waves that come into your ear, and your brain is able to process them in a way that we can't really process with uh, devices, right, with microphones and what have you. And so these scientists, they were trying to find some way to uh, gauge the quality of sound with instruments, like with detection instruments, and not the human ear. And it turns out to be very, very difficult, basically impossible. But they were able to make a little bit of headway. But it's kind of cool because they they had to set up this instrument in a soundproofed room, like one of those rooms with the foam blocks all over them. You might have seen them before. And they used a French horn because the French horn has a very rich sound. They put it in a box and filled it with sand so that there were no vibrations from the actual instrument. It was all from the sound and the tubes. And then they made this fake pair of lips because the human being, when they play a French horn, it's a lot of sort of how the person plays the French horn, and that changes from time to time, depending on your breath and just sort of how you're playing. So they made these lips, these fake lips, out of rubber gloves. They filled them with like some sort of jelly material, and those became the lips to play the French horn. Y'all aren't impressed by that at all, are you? I thought that was kind of cool. And they were able to analyze these multiple frequencies, these waves. Okay. All right. So a couple definitions. Remember, our audible to inaudible ran from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. We call infrasonic that's going to be below the audible level. So infrasonic is defined on what we can hear below the audible level. Less than 20 hertz. And then we call ultrasonic above the audible level. Above the audible level, that's going to be greater than 20,000 hertz. On average for typical people, though, as we learned, it's quite a bit less than that. Dogs and cats can hear ultrasonic. They can hear and respond to that. So, of course, that's the idea behind dog whistles. If any of you train dogs, you can buy whistles that actually emit sounds at these very, very high frequencies that you can't hear, but dogs can hear. And then infrasonic, actually. These types of waves can be used by all sorts of creatures. It's thought that elephants use infrasonic. Of course, what else? Whales, right? They use these very low frequency waves to communicate, infrasonic waves. In particular, we're interested in this because ultrasound, which we'll talk about hopefully today, maybe next time, ultrasound equipment as you might expect, uses infrasonic or ultrasonic sound waves. Ultrasonic, right? That's why it's called ultrasound. They use ultrasonic waves, usually a frequency of about 20 megahertz, uses frequency of about 20 megahertz or 20 million hertz. So obviously that's much higher than the audible range. We would call this 20 megahertz, where mega means million. Start this. All right. Let's look at the anatomy and physiology of speech production. We'll come back to ultrasound equipment and how that works in just a bit. This is the anatomy of speech production. So at its very basic level, speech, or the production of sound, is caused by the movement bless you. The movement of air past the vocal cords. We'll look at some pictures soon of the vocal cords and see how they work. This air is forced because of the work done by the diaphragm. And we've talked about this in the previous chapter when we were talking about pressures, how your diaphragm pushes up and makes your chest cavity smaller. That increases the pressure in the chest cavity and forces the air out of your mouth. And you can have a very forceful expulsion of air past your vocal cords, and that will give you louder sounds, or you can have very quiet forcing of air, which is that makes less air go past your vocal cords, and you have a lower amount of sound. So your diaphragm basically controls how much air and with what force it goes through your vocal cords, and hence your the amplitude. So the diaphragm enlarges or shortens the chest cavity. And remember, we said this before, this was called Boyle's law. It says that PV is equal to a constant value. And so if I make my chest cavity smaller, that causes a pressure to increase. So the pressure inside my chest cavity, inside my lungs, increases, and that forces air because of the pressure difference between the pressure in my lungs and the pressure out of my lungs, causes the air to be expelled. You should know sort of the basic movement that the air takes and the names of all those parts. I suspect that y'all already know these because most of you have had, what, anatomy? Is that where you learned this? Is that right? Yeah, so air moves from the lungs. You know the basic definitions, or the basic vocabulary. From the lungs, excuse me. Through the trachea. And this is also called the what? The trachea? The windpipe. Very good. So through the windpipe, comes right up here, through the windpipe, and then to the larynx. And within the larynx, this contains the vocal cords, and the Adam's apple. All right, so this larynx is sort of right here, where this knot that you have in your neck, it also contains your vocal cords. And so the air comes from your lungs, goes up your windpipe or your trachea, and then it comes to the larynx right here. And that's where the sound of your voice is created as air moves through those vocal cords. And actually, if you feel here when you're speaking, of course, you can feel the vibrations. Right? Let me show you a figure. Can I come away from this for just a second? I'll give you all a moment. This is it. Yeah, so this is just from your book. But here you see the lungs. They feed air into the trachea, and then this comes into the larynx, where it has your voice box or your vocal cords and your Adam's apple, and then cartilage and muscles there to help control the vocal cords, open or close them. That figure's in your book, too. The vocal cords. These are also called the vocal folds. I've never heard that before. Have y'all heard that before? Gosh, y'all know so much stuff about this, don't you? All right, so these vocal folds are inside the larynx. And this larynx protects them, which protects. And moves the vocal cords. I'm going to call them just VC. All right, so your vocal cords can move back and forth like this, and the larynx works to move those vocal cords back and forth when you want to speak or not, the different sounds that you want to make. The cords are actually muscles. They can open or close. And the space between the vocal cords is called the glottis. I think there's a picture in your book. Pretty sure, but they're pretty simple, so I'll just draw them. You have these two cords. They can either be closed like that, or they can be open like that. And the space in between them is called the glottis. All right? You can open them or close them depending on different situations. So if you were whispering, for example, like my kids are taking the eye leap, and my little girl is in kindergarten, so she's not taking the eye leap, but they have to be very, very quiet. So it's like all week they have to whisper all day. She's sick of whispering. Tomorrow they're done. She said they're just going to yell like all day. All right, so if you're whispering, are your vocal cords going to be open or closed? Open or closed if you're whispering? So they're going to be open like this. I'll show you in a minute, just a second. If you're whispering, they're going to be open. And if you're breathing, for example, what do you want those? Do you want them to be open or closed? If you're breathing? You want them to be open if you're breathing, because if they're closed, they can actually constrict your breathing. What's that, Destiny? You're just muttering? Oh, okay. Yeah, so when you're breathing, they'll be open. A glottal stop, which you may have heard of, and we'll watch a little video about it in just a second. A glottal stop is when you close the glottis. So when you actually make your vocal cords close up and that glottis becomes smaller, when you close the glottis, This causes a particular sound. If any of you are musicians or singers, I am not, but if you are a singer, a glottal stop is a particular type of musical, what's the word? Musical thing, right? Something that you do when you're singing. This causes a particular sound. We'll watch a video of a musician using the glottal stop in a particular way. Well, let's do it right now. You want to see a little video? This is just a lady. She's a singer, and she's explaining what a glottal stop is and how you use it both in speech and then also in singing and the sound that it makes.